You're watching Power Media Network.
I gotta tell you something I could do. I could be running around chasing you, but I won't. Cause I got better things to do. Rather spend my precious time chasing somebody who loves me too. If I got $1 for every time you slam the door, I would be the richest girl alive, life. If you hadn't run away every time I asked you stay, you would sleep right next to me tonight. But you didn't know me, all you wanted was a game to play, and you couldn't handle that I had my ways. Around your mind tricks and your side chicks, I'm a winner.
Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience is fruitful. Please feel free to visit our website to find out how you can join our growing family. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. Also, share so others may enjoy as well. And we hope you would consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
Vick, victorious! Vick, victorious! Hey y'all, you can't tell me my theme song ain't popping, because it is, and it is. Happy Friday, Junior, y'all. I hope you're doing well. I mean, this episode is heavy, so I actually really do hope you're doing well. Funny thing is, on Facebook, I often, every so often, not like regularly, but I will literally just post, how are you? And see who, jumps in and says, I'm doing okay. How are you? I do it for two reasons. One, because nobody really asks me, how are you? I go to work and stuff and talk to people at work, but I don't know if I engage with folks on a basis where I feel like I have a chance to talk to people about how I feel. And then also, again, like I want to know how other people are doing. So I decided that because I felt how I felt, that in order to get what I wanted back, I had to put it out. So I said, how are you? And people respond. So every so often I do that. So I really do hope you are doing well, considering everything that's going on. Welcome to Dr. VICKtorious, where I explore the intersections of social justice, wellness, and what it means to show up fully human, especially from a Black perspective, because as you can tell, I am Black. Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Nicole D. Vick. In this episode, we're going to get real. We're going to talk about what's going on in Minnesota, in Minneapolis specifically, through a public health and social justice lens. If you don't know what's going on or know the details, I will do my best to give you some insight. And also, to be very clear, I am not in Minneapolis. I have been to Minneapolis. I was actually there over the summer. I presented at a conference. So I'm going to talk about that. But I'll also talk about how state violence functions as a social determinant of health, shaping mental health, community trust, and long-term well-being far beyond state lines. So even if you are not in Minnesota, how these things can impact you. And when I talk to people about public health, when I used to teach, right, and I would do these lectures on the social determinants of health and concepts like health equity and how issues like racism impact health outcomes, I would talk about things like how systems, and the state is a system, can harm people. Some people were raised to believe that the system works on their behalf. And in fact, that is true. For a lot of people, the system works for them. You call the police will help you. There are some people that look like me. When they call the police is actually harmful, right? So in some, I want to bring that forward in this conversation, how state-based violence can be harmful. Well, it is harmful, not can be, it is, right? Your government actually harming you is a bad thing. And I think it's pretty clear why that is so, but I want to dig, right? We're going to have a conversation about that this evening to the best of my ability. And if I make a mistake, I welcome correction because I don't know everything. That's an important thing about being an adult, is to admit I don't know everything, but I know what I know, and I've done my best to do my research. So we will have a good conversation this evening. No guests, just me running my mouth, y'all. But before we get into the topic of the evening, we have to do the stroll, because baby, I've been scrolling. So we go scroll up on the scroll. The first one, listen, I'm sorry. I love this new phrase that people say, never beating the allegations, because it is so accurate. Like, man, these people are never beating the allegations. They say things and it's like, do you hear yourself? Did you read it before you hit the button to post it? Because what you just said is crazy. So let's pull up the first one. The first one is, I labeled it foolish number one. This has to be the one where the woman says, hey, can we go back to regular police brutality? And let me tell you, man, they ate her up in the comments. What you mean, go back to regular police brutality? You mean the police brutality where Black and brown people were killed, where, folks that maybe through no fault of their own were harmed by the police? What do you mean, can we go back to regular police brutality? And I love threads. You will notice that most of my strolls are from threads, because all these conversations happen and there's so much discourse. So this person made this statement. I don't know what I don't know. But to say, can we go back to regular police brutality, seems really harmful to say, because regular police brutality is George Floyd, right? Regular police brutality is Breonna Taylor. Like, Emmett Till was killed by the police. But you understand what I'm like, what? What is you saying? So the rest of the photos are folks responding to that horrible post, and really speaking on some of the things that are even happening in Minnesota. So the second photo is, hey, I know a lot of you are just now waking up to what's happening and are feeling sort of dismayed about the state of what's happening in this country. But hey, we've been trying to tell you for about 400 years, like, this is how things go, but you guys ignored it because it was us and you maybe didn't really care. So for a lot of us, this is not a surprise. Hey, you guys don't like the term woke, but that's what stay woke means. Keep your head on the swivel. Y'all didn't like that term, but that's actually the term. That's what you need to do to stay alive. That's what we learned and taught ourselves to do to protect ourselves. So it's just really ironic that these things are happening. And then the last one is, this idea about generational discrimination and sort of generational trauma. And if people can understand how generational wealth works, how come you can't understand the impact of generational trauma and discrimination and the impact it has? So if you discriminate against my great grandmama, I also unfortunately suffer from that, because it doesn't just stop. Those things are generationally sort of bound, right? Hey, Cyrus, thank you for joining. All right, let's move on to the scroll number 2. Kind of actually touches on that very last comment that I just posted up that was just shared with you all. This is about sort of the mortality gap between Black and white adults can be traced to the cumulative toll of a lifetime of stress and heightened inflammation. A new study published on Monday shows. This was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And it bolsters the body of evidence. So this is not the only study that has really looked at this, but it just helps to make the point clear that there's a link between chronic stress and the biological toll it takes that shortens lives. And so it talks about discrimination, chronic stress, and shortened lifespan. So it says researchers analyzed the proteins in the blood in more than 1,500 Black and white adults who were part of an aging study in the St. Louis area spanning 17 years. So this is a long-term sort of a cohort study. They found that decades of stress, childhood adversity, trauma, discrimination, and economic hardship were associated with higher levels of inflammation later in life, which correlated to earlier death. Inflammation is really not a good thing. Look it up. Epidemiologists say the two biomarkers, C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, tend to linger in the blood after the body's fight or flight system has been repeatedly triggered, allowing them to capture what's accumulated over time. So this is more research, more evidence that, hey, discrimination is harmful, not just because, oh, it's unfair, it's not fair, it's a bad thing. No, it actually harms people and it shortens their lifespan. So how can then we think about collectively as a society fixing the issues that cause the harm? So that's kind of the thing that I've been doing for the last 20 plus years of my career, especially since we started hearing about the social determinants of health. These are the things that we're talking about: educational attainment, economic opportunity, access to jobs, all these sorts of things. When you take those things away from a community or kind of make it hard for them to achieve certain things, you're causing chronic stress, which I just said will shorten your life expectancy. So we got a lot of work to do, especially in light of what has been happening in 2026, and it's only January 29th. Like what we going backwards real fast. Like somebody got the car in reverse and got their foot on that pedal hard. We going back in time like it ain't nobody business. And so I fear that what we're seeing here, we will see more of happening in the future if we don't do anything different. And the last stroll is another rest in power. I feel like, oh my gosh, there are so many people out here in the world doing such amazing things. And unfortunately, they leave us way, way too soon. And I'm one of those kind of people where I feel like anything less than forever is way too soon. So I will admit, I don't think I followed her account and followed what she did really closely, but I still feel like whenever someone is taking immediate power, and I feel like we all have that immediate power to do a thing and to do it well, to help someone else, it's worth mentioning. Shirley Raines was a social media creator and nonprofit founder who dedicated her life to caring for people experiencing homelessness. She has passed away. Her organization was called Beauty to the Streets, and she was 58. And I'm gonna say right quick, every picture I've seen of her, I'm like, 58 where, right? She definitely lived well. I know I was reading there was some struggles. I think she had lost a child at some point in her life. And so there was always that grief sort of holding on. And so I don't know, I just feel really, like I said, sad because I know she was doing such good work. And there's been so many people that have stepped up on social media and saying, I can't believe it. And it's so sad about her passing. And it just really, to me, speaks to the quality of her work. One thing I will say, it seems like she was given her flowers early. She had won some awards, I think, last year or so. Really grateful for that, right? That she got to see that people really respected the work that she had done. But I know her community, I'm sure, is grieving her loss right now. But again, a reminder, all of us have immediate power. Like sometimes we feel powerless, but think about it. She was like, I want to do something. I want to make a difference. And she did it. I don't think she waited for a permission, right? She didn't wait for somebody to say, yeah, you can do it. She did the thing and she did it well. And so really just wanted to give that space to bring her to you if you haven't heard of her before, but also just to give her that honor and to lift her up in this space. So I hope her journey is safe. It's just really like, I always get rest in powers really get to me, but a really, really sad story to hear. Definitely gone too soon. So we're gonna take a commercial break because I always get real little sob. People say you don't have any emotion, Nicole. You always, girl, I be in here crying off of commercials and all kind of other things. So stuff like this really touches me because, like I said, she didn't have to do it, but she did it, and she figured out a way to do it, and she did it. So that's a lot. All right, let's go to commercial. We're gonna come back and talk about what's going on in Minnesota, child. Woo! See you in a little bit.
Hey, how y'all doing? Real quick, this is Daryl Walter, host of the Daryl Walter Show. I know. And you are watching Pyro Media Network.
Hey, it's Pastor Kim from It's Just Kim Live Show, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
We are back. Cyrus, my bad. You was making some real key comments here. You said it's actually really surprising that they are surprised. Are you surprised that it's happening or that it's happening to you? And I think it's the latter. They're surprised that it's happening to them because I think there was some sort of mirage of protection, maybe like, oh, it wouldn't happen to us. No, not us. And then it's happening. So it's like, oh crap. What's going on? Yes, it's only January. Like, oh my goodness, we ain't even it's only January. I mean, we about to be in February, but it's like, dang, it's kind of, this is how I felt last year, right? And I'm like, what is going on? It's only January. It was like the second week of January, like boom, 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 boom. Stuff was just happening. It was happening fast. Oh my gosh, my friend Neil, I was stressed during a time when my ex kept my daughters from me. It's hard when your children are being sort of held. Oh, I feel for you, and I hope that has been resolved now. But thank you for bringing that up for sure. All right, we can talk about what's going on, state violence, Minnesota. This is analysis with care, y'all. Like I told you, I am not above being corrected. That's one thing I've learned, I think, in my entire working and professional career. Like, do the work, and somebody might come back with a red pen and mark it up. It's okay. It's part of the process. So I'm not going to pretend to be the expert. I am not in Minneapolis. I don't know everything that's happening, but I want to explain some of these concepts to you so that you can understand what's really happening. It's a lot. And it's overwhelming. It's serious. This is not a joke. It's very heavy. The uncertainty can be very anxiety inducing. And, we're going to focus on some public health concepts tonight. I want to make sure I help you understand what's going on. And often what you see on the news is sensationalism, especially now, because like, wait, who's reporting what's going on, right? I think I'm finding out more from sort of unofficial, like, there folks that are doing the news themselves, like Mr. Lemon. Mr. Lemon, ever since he left, what's the name? He out here like telling it like it is. So it's really cool. But what happens in the news sometimes is for shock value. It's sometimes often incomplete information. It's not quite accurate. But when we think about it from a public health perspective, our questions sometimes are very different. We think about who is being harmed, right? And who is being harmed is often not obvious. How often is this happening? What are the downstream effects as opposed to upstream? Or what are the upstream and downstream effects? And who bears the long-term cost? So that's what I really want to kind of frame this episode about, and let's have this conversation about. It's really not just political, what's happening right now. It is also a public health issue as well. So we all know ICE activity has intensified. I mean, it's already kind of been, to me, what I would consider rogue. Like, wait, you're just like literally like snatching people, like hitting, like what? I'm walking down the street and it's like snatch, like what? So, but what I think has intensified as of late is that people have been killed, and I from what I understand, there's about 9 people that have since been killed by ICE, right? But specifically in Minneapolis on January 7th, Renee Good was shot during an enforcement action. And then on January 24th, Alex Pretty was also shot and killed. He was a nurse, which I think for a lot of people that adds another level, like, wait, a nurse? Like, you know, nurses are typically well respected. And so for a nurse to be killed in that manner feels a way for some of us in that space, in that healthcare or public health space, like, oh no. And so as a result, you know, the community said, hold on, like what is going on? So there were protests, but then there's also fear. People are like, wait, if this could happen to these folks, then it could happen to me. And I will go back again to the scroll stroll. There are certain people in the world that are like, we was trying to tell you that, yes, it could happen to you because it was happening to us already. And we've been trying to tell you this for hundreds of years. But now, I think now you're starting to see it. You're starting to wake up while we were already woke. And we were trying to tell you, but you didn't want to hear it because it wasn't you, right? So that's what's happening right now. There's this issue of lack of clarity, lack of accountability, because right, what you see on the news or what you hear from officials about what happened is very different what people are actually seeing happen. Like, that's not what happened. And so there's some collective stress there, some collective anxiety, some collective anger. So what happens is when you're in a situation where there's a lot of unpredictability and there's this lethal force, you have population level anxiety, and trauma spreads beyond those that are directly involved. So, you know, you start to see the community like traumatized by what has happened right in ground zero, but also the rest of us are like, wait, could this happen to me? And thank you, Neil, for bringing up Keith Porter. Keith Porter was killed here in Los Angeles. I think that was New Year's Eve going into New Year's Day by an off-duty ICE agent. So that was also one of those 9 people that lost their lives around the same time. And so it's just really, so all that to say, uncertainty itself is a stressor. It can cause anxiety. When people don't know what to expect from the state, their bodies respond as if danger is constant. And again, some of us were trained that the state is safety. If you call the police, they will help you. We have been taught, people that look like me have been taught that the state is not always safe. Sometimes we can call the police because then something can happen. And in fact, there have been incidents where Black people have called the police and actually have been killed by the police. They're calling for help and end up dead. Okay. So again, I feel like have a collective understanding on our part as a community, like we don't trust. Whereas I guess it appears that other people have a collective understanding of trust. And now they're like, they're like, whoa, you messing up that's why you get people on threads saying things like, can we go back to regular police brutality, which was a horrible statement, by the way. But that's, if you understand that thought pattern, that's what happens. Okay. So violence as a public health issue is a core public health concept. Safety and the perception of safety is a social determinant of health. Think about it. When you are safe, you're free to do a lot of things. I talk a lot about neighborhood safety. And, in one of my lectures for my undergrad students, I show them a community where actually I show them a building that's sort of torn, like, the windows are broken and boarded up and the sidewalk is all cracked up. And then I show them one that looks really nice. And I said, would you send your children outside to play in front of that building that's boarded up? And they say no. And I say, why? Oh, because it's not safe. Safety is a social determinant of health, because if you don't feel safe, you make certain decisions about what you do with your life. Are you going to send your kids outside to play? Are you going to go to walk? Are you going to get on the bus to go to the workers' school if you don't feel safe? So safety is really important. And if you're not safe, that anxiety and that chronic stress that I talked about in the stroll will end up causing you harm. So that's why for us, safety and violence prevention is a really, really important public health concept. Now, when the state is the one perpetuating the violence, because it's one thing for neighborhood violence, right? Your neighbor mad at you because you stole the rake and you have a fight, or gang violence, which is also a very bad thing. So I'm not minimizing that, but that's one thing, right? But when the state perpetuates that violence against you, different, right? It feels different when something that's supposed to be designed to protect you is not protecting you. So you become stressed out and it becomes chronic stress. Your health outcomes worsen, and health outcomes mean things like, do you get sick? Is your blood pressure high? Are you going to the emergency room? Is your diabetes not managed well? All those kinds of things. And then the other thing that happens is you lose trust in systems. And again, the caveat is always true for us as Black people. I don't think we've really ever had trust in any of the systems because we've been taught and shown that we shouldn't trust those systems, right? So what happens when you don't trust the system? You don't participate. You're like, I'm staying inside. I'm not doing any of these things because I don't know if I can trust anyone with my safety. I have to be in charge of my safety and be in control of it. So I just said your blood pressure goes up, heart disease, anxiety, depression, PTSD, sleep disruption. I would bet that if someone did right now, what you call it? Oh, shoot. It's a certain point in time survey on sleep disruption in Minneapolis right now. I would argue the point that people are not sleeping well. Their blood pressure is high. Depending on how you decide to cope, you may be using alcohol or other drugs to try to, soothe yourself and calm yourself down. And then we can't ignore this idea of intergenerational trauma. So again, if we're talking about Black folk, brown folk, Native folk who have been traumatized, and now they're in a situation that is currently traumatizing, that starts to come up as well. And then you get situations with PTSD. And you don't need to be touched directly by violence to be impacted by it. I like to think about this as like an iceberg, and I've seen this analogy before in public health conversations around violence. When we think about violence, we tend to think about the person that is harmed, right? The person that was either hurt or killed, right? At the top of the iceberg. We don't think about everything that happens underneath. Family members that are left behind, that are dealing with the emotions behind it, especially if it was traumatic, right? The systems that are impacted, the community, the larger community that's now fearful. What's going to happen now? We are not sure what's happening. Other things that happen, like, that seem more practical, loss of income. And was that person the breadwinner in the family now? And now that they're gone, what happens now to the family? All these things happen below the surface after the ambulance has taken the person away, after, if they were unfortunately killed, after the funeral is over, right? So it's really, really, really interesting and really important to understand. I see some comments. How do chronic unsafe circumstances factor into social determinants of health? Yeah, thank you. And yes, I just spoke to it. I talked about how those things really happen. Now, let's be real. I keep seeing this on threads. Some of y'all were asleep. I'm going to just use the term. I don't care. Everybody's anti-woke. I don't care. Some of y'all were asleep. The rest of us were awake. We were awake the whole time, head on the swivel, because we know what's going to happen because history has taught us what is going to happen. We know. I was talking to the producer before we came on. Because I said, I don't know what's going on. Yes, you do. You're right. I do. Because history has taught us what's going to happen. And we know because we've experienced it, right? But some of you all were asleep. The alarm has sounded. Wake up. Okay. Side note. I have my alarm. I can tie it to my Spotify, and so it'll play some of my music. That's the best alarm in the world because it'll start playing like the most hip hoppy is loudest, and I'm like, I'm dreaming and I'm like, wait, all of a sudden, what's going on? So side note, tie your alarm to your Spotify playlist and it'll wake you up really well. Some of y'all got that alarm and woke up. I'm gonna be gentle and but honest. To folks who are just now feeling shocked or afraid or activated by what's happening in Minnesota, if this feels new to you, sit with that. And you don't have to be defensive about it, not necessarily guilty about it, but sit with it, be curious, be open. Why am I just now understanding this? And understand that for many Black communities and for many immigrant communities, many Native communities, many trans communities, LGBTQ, the idea that the state can harm you without accountability is old news. We've been knew it, okay? It has been a lived reality for generations. We have been saying what happens to us is not an exception. It's a warning. We have been saying it. We have been saying it. And the warning was often dismissed. Yeah, you're exaggerating. Oh, you're being too political. So if you're waking up now, good. But this moment didn't start today. What's new is not the violence. What's new is who feels vulnerable enough to notice. What's new is who feels vulnerable enough to notice. Public health teaches us that when harm is normalized for one group, it eventually becomes possible for others. Haven't you seen that before? Where you test one thing on somebody else, and if it works, oh, well, then shoot, I'm gonna go. Let me see how I can do it with other people. Have y'all not seen that happen before? Like, this was a test. I was testing to see if this works. Now I'm gonna do it on somebody else. Like, that's how it works. That's how systems work. The work now isn't shock. It's about solidarity. It's listening. It's learning. It's reading. There's so much has been written. Books, W.E.B. Du Bois, going all the way back before even him, right? And then to now about what's happening and what could happen and what will happen. So I feel like for all of you that are just now waking up, like I said, just spend a lot of time listening and learning and not trying to default to defensiveness. And listen to folks, especially like Black women, because like we be knowing stuff. We've seen it. We've seen what happens to us as Black women. We've seen our Black men killed in the street. We've seen it. I was talking to the producer before I came on about Philando Castile. He was his woman and the child was in the car when he was killed, literally in the same car right there. We have seen it. So I think we understand it probably way more than anybody else ever will. So pay attention. Yay, I'm glad you're awake. Read some books. Pay attention and listen. And don't say things like, can we go back to regular police brutality? Don't do that. Okay. Thank you. Oh, so also let's also just step, move forward a little bit and talk about how people are feeling. I want to normalize that what you're feeling right now is normal. Like, it's normal to feel anxiety, to feel fear, to be unsure, uncertain, and kind of feel like, kind of like in limbo, because everything is different now. We're in a different time and place in this country's history. I'm curious on what this is going to look like in the history books. Like what they going to write about in the textbooks? Because I'm really curious about that. So things to think about, concepts like vicarious trauma, collective trauma, media-induced stress, and how to manage that, right? You're watching stuff happen and you're seeing things in real time. Social media has given us, this sort of face-to-face experience of things. We see stuff that we wouldn't have seen 10, 15 years ago. And then racialized stress exposure. Again, if you are a minoritized person, you definitely will experience this differently than anybody else. I talk a lot about workforce, organizational change, and stuff like that. And what does it feel like as a Black person, for example, to see all of this stuff happening around you, understand it in a way that maybe nobody else does, and then you go to work and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. Everybody's like, what's going on? I don't know. What do you mean? What? That feels crazy. And it can make you feel crazy. Like, well, what? How come you don't understand what's happening and the impact of that? So it can be really hard. You can be all the way in California and still feel what's happening in Minnesota and Minneapolis and other parts of the country in your body. You do not have to be there to feel it. And we have to be mindful that repeated exposure to violence through media can activate the stress response just as powerfully as if you were there. Okay, so you have to be careful about what you're absorbing. I'm not saying I'm not telling you to turn it off and be blind to it. But what I'm saying is be careful how much of it you absorb. Okay, and if you are a minoritized person, Black, brown, trans, be careful, because a lot of this can reopen old wounds. We have a very interesting history in this country about, trauma and violence. Got to be really careful about how much you take in, because it can really cause stress and it can cause you some harm. So be careful. So let's get to some real examples of what happens when, again, you don't trust the state. The state is supposed to protect you and it ain't protecting you. It's harming you. You ain't going to the doctor for your checkup. You're not going to the hospital if you are hurt. You're not going to your mental health visits. Going to prenatal care. You're not calling the police. Do not have trust in public institutions. These things are really happening. I've already had conversations with people saying our numbers are down. Folks are not coming into the clinic. People are not sending their children to school. So this is also some of the harm. So not just the physical, like the health related harms, these are also harmful as well. You're not sending your children to school. You're not going to work. You're not using the services that you're supposed to be accessing, like healthcare and mental health services. So those are things that happen in communities where there is fear and distrust in the system. Healthcare access becomes a collateral damage to what's happening when there is unrest and distrust in those communities. So what do you do if you're not in Minnesota, you're not in Minneapolis, and you feel like I need to do something? Well, there's some things that you should do to protect yourself. First and foremost, you do have to limit your social media exposure. Definitely curate your feed in such a way where maybe, there's some accounts, and I talked about this. Remember a couple episodes ago, I talked about social media and bots and all those things. There's certain social media accounts that really like to sensationalize and show the gruesome things and all that. Maybe those are the ones you put on mute or you unfollow for now, and just kind of keep yourself sort of held to a specific, body of people that you know and trust that will provide accurate information, and just kind of stick there, and then limit the amount of time you spend on social media. Again, stay informed, but not consumed. Don't let it consume you. Support organizations led by impacted communities. Who's doing the work in Minneapolis, for example, that could benefit from money. Sometimes there are funds to get people out of jail, right? If they have been arrested because they're protesting, hey, let me donate to this fund so folks can get out of jail. Advocate for policies that protect health and safety. There are elections that are coming up really soon, sooner rather than later. Make sure you're in the ballot, you're in the voting thing and doing your thing and voting correctly. Please, this time, hello? And then check in on yourself, especially if you are Black, brown, trans, LGBTQ, minoritized in some way. Check in on your own mental health. Do what I did. Go on Facebook and ask, how are you? And see what people say. It gives you a chance to tell people how you're doing, and let people know you're not feeling okay. I'm not okay. Like, this is really scary. This is a lot going on. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should send my kids to school. I don't know. I'm afraid. It's perfectly fine to check in on your own mental health and to find that support if you need it from other people. So I said a lot. I know I said a whole lot. Now I hope some of it landed for you. I hope some of this was helpful in helping sort of to understand like what's really going on. I'm really hopeful that things don't get any worse. I want this all to stop, period. I just want it to all stop because it's crazy. People getting taken off the street, just kidnapped. Like, what is happening? People being killed by the government. Insane. And hopefully some of this can, again, help you contextualize what's going on. We're going to go to commercial and we're going to close out. So we'll be back in a little bit. See ya.
What's going on, y'all? It's Kwame Speaks from Kwame Speaks Live, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
All right, we're heading to the end of this episode. We're going to go right into the doctor's notes. This is kind of my wrap up to you all. Public health is about preventing harm before it becomes normal. And unfortunately, I think we have crossed that line already. Like, some of this, unfortunately, has become normalized. It's also about believing people before they're broken. And it's about telling the truth, even when the truth makes us uncomfortable. And I hope, again, that this evening's episode helped to bring some clarity to what's happening right now. And I think as far as what I want to leave you all with, please, I'm going to say it, stay woke, keep your eyes open, put your head on the swivel, look around 2, 3, 4, 5 times, pay attention to what's happening. I will say this, a lot of time, I also have seen this on threads. People are like, oh my gosh, this is like what happened in Germany back in the day. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. This is like what happened in Germany back in the day. Oh my gosh. What people forget, again, you got to read. I read Cast and I read the 1619 Project. Guess where the people in Germany back in the day figured out what they was going to do to the people in Germany back in the day? They didn't come up with that. Oh, they looked at what was happening over here and said, I like what they're doing to those Black people over here. Let's replicate that to some degree. So please understand that what's happening here today is not, oh my gosh, it's just like what happened back then in Germany. What's happening here today is just like what happened here in the beginning of the creation of this country. So please be clear about that. The other thing I want to leave you with, take care of yourselves. Manage what you're watching on social media. Stay informed, but don't let it consume you. And if you want to help, think about who's doing the work on the ground. I promise you, if you just do a little bit of research, it will not be hard to figure out who is doing the work in those spaces where stuff is happening, and support. Like I said, I'm sure there are many, many community-based organizations that are helping to make sure folks have resources and things. So find those people and send money. Okay, that's what they're going to need. And the other thing is, find your community and hold on tight to the people that you love and care about. Oh, and here's another one. Get your emergency stuff together, your emergency kit, you know, your food, all that kind of stuff. Get that together too. Just think about this as an emergency. We don't know, like if this was an earthquake or a flood, how would you prepare for that? Do that now, because we just don't know what's going to happen. And if you need to leave on a moment's notice, be ready to go. Okay. And I know that sounds extreme, but for real. And if nothing happens, then you're ready for the earthquake or the flood or the fire. So it's not a bad thing to do. All right, y'all. Thank you for this watching and taking your time to check me out this week. You know where to find me. I have a beautiful, beautiful website, www.NicoleDVick.com. You can find all the things that I do there. You can see me as a guest on other people's podcasts, some YouTube stuff that I've done in the past. You can watch old Dr. VICKtorious, old Nicole D. Vick live episodes. My books are there. You can reach out to me if you want me to MC your event, if you want me to come do a guest lecture, if you want me to do something, train your staff on organizational change and workforce development. All those things are there on that website. My book is there, Triumph in the Trenches, which is an anthology. My friend Neil is in that anthology. Yay! He's here. He's been commenting tonight. It's about surviving the workforce as Black folk, babes. It's a green book for surviving the workforce. The idea is to get there, do your job, and make it on out to retirement, okay? My other two books are there as well. Push Through 52 Weeks of Light and Tough Times, and Pushing Through Finding the Light in Every Lesson. I'm on Instagram. My Instagram account is Dr. VICKtorious. And then I have my more personal one is Nicole D. Vick. And I'm on LinkedIn probably more than anything. If you want to kind of get at me at the professional level, it's LinkedIn. All right, y'all. I'll see you next week. I'm going to have a couple guests next month. We're going to talk about burnout prevention and stuff like that. So kind of leading back into the Triumph in the Trenches work, like, hey, we don't want you to burn out. It's about to be February. We don't want you burnt out so early in the year. We don't want you burnt out at all. But I'm just saying, we don't want you burnt out this early. So let's prevent it. All right, y'all. I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for watching Pyro Media Network. For more information, please visit pyromedianetwork.com.